The lonely hum of the ship's engines kept Jack Miller company as he guided his small salvage vessel through the debris field. The remnants of an interstellar battle drifted silently around him, a graveyard of twisted metal and broken dreams. Jack had been a military medic once, but those days were long behind him. Now he made his living as a salvager, picking through the leftovers of humanity's expansion into the stars. "Computer, scan for valuable metals," Jack said, his voice rough. From disuse. It had been 3 weeks since he'd spoken to another living soul. "Scanning," the computer replied in its flat, feminine voice. "Multiple sources detected. Highest concentration bearing 047. Jack adjusted course, navigating through the spinning wreckage with practiced ease. His ship, the Drifter's Hope, was small but nimble, perfect for threading through tight spaces where larger salvage operations couldn't go. "Wait," Jack said, squinting at a blinking light on his scanner. "What's that?" "Unknown power signature detected. Possible escape pod, bearing 279. Jack's curiosity piqued. Escape pods often contained valuable technology, and occasionally survivors who might offer a reward. He changed course again, thrusters firing in short bursts as he approached. The mysterious object as he drew closer, Jack could see it was indeed an escape pod, but not of any human design he recognized. Its sleek, pearlescent surface reflected the distant starlight in ways that made his eyes hurt if he looked too long. "Computer, any life signs? One life form detected, weak vital signs?" "Species unknown," Jack frowned. The smart move would be to call this into the Frontier Authority and wait for instructions. Unknown alien species could mean unknown alien diseases, or worse. But something about the fading life sign tugged at his old medical instincts. "Prep the airlock. I'm going to bring it aboard." Using the ship's mechanical arms, Jack carefully secured the pod and brought it into his cargo bay. He pulled on an environmental suit just to be safe, then made his way down to investigate. Up close, the pod was even stranger. Its surface seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, yet remained solid to the touch. Jack found what appeared to be an opening mechanism and, after a moment's hesitation, activated it. The pod opened with a soft hiss. Inside lay a humanoid figure that took Jack's breath away. She, and Jack was somehow certain, it was female, had skin the color of moonlight with faint patterns that reminded him of star charts. Her face was delicate, with high cheekbones and pointed ears that swept back against her head. Most striking were her eyes, which fluttered open as the pod opened large, almond-shaped, and a deep violet that seemed to hold galaxies within them. But what truly shocked Jack was her swollen abdomen. She was pregnant and very far along from the look of it. "Seraphim," Jack whispered in awe. He had heard of this reclusive species, but never expected to encounter one. The Seraphim were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology, telepathic abilities, and their strict isolation from other species. This one appeared badly injured, with a deep gash across her shoulder and burns along one side of her body. The Seraphim woman's eyes focused on Jack, filled with fear and pain. Then, to his shock, he heard a voice in his mind. Double quotes, "help, us." Jack hesitated only a moment before his training took over. "I'm a medic," he said aloud, knowing somehow that she could understand him. "I'm going to help you." He carefully lifted her from the pod, surprised at how light she was despite her pregnancy. As he carried her to the small medical bay on his ship, he felt a strange, tingling sensation in his mind, as if something or someone was reaching out to him. The medical scanner beeped urgently as he placed her on the examination table. "Multiple injuries detected," the computer announced. "Subject is in shock. Fetal distress detected. Twin fetuses present." "Twins," Jack muttered, grabbing supplies from his limited medical stores. Of course it would be twins. He worked quickly, applying regenerative gel to her wounds and setting up an intravenous fluid line. The Seraphim's anatomy was similar enough to human that his treatments should help, but different enough that he feared making a mistake. As he worked, her violet eyes opened again, focusing intently on his face. The voice in his mind returned, stronger this time. "They hunt us, my children, natural born. Forbiddance." Jack didn't fully understand, but he nodded reassuringly. You're safe now. I'll protect you. The words came automatically, but as soon as he said them, he felt their weight settle on his shoulders like a solemn vow. My name. Lyra, the voice whispered in his mind before her eyes closed again. Lyra, Jack repeated, continuing his treatment. Stay with me, Lyra. For the next several hours, Jack fought to stabilize her condition. The medical equipment on his small salvage vessel wasn't designed for complicated cases, let alone alien pregnancies. Twice her heart stopped, and twice Jack managed to revive her. All the while, the strange tingling in his mind continued, sometimes feeling like one presence, sometimes like three. By the time the main sun of this system rose over the debris field. Outside, Jack was exhausted but satisfied that Lyra was stable, at least for now. Her wounds were beginning to heal thanks to the regenerative gel, and the fetal monitors showed that the twins were no longer in immediate danger. As Jack sat beside the examination table, studying the readouts and wondering what to do next, Lyra's eyes opened once more. This time they seemed clearer, more focused. Jack Miller, she said in his mind, startling him with the use of his name. How did you— Your mind is open to me. I am sorry for the intrusion, but I am too weak to speak aloud. Jack nodded. Slowly, can you tell me what happened to you? Why you were in that escape pod? Images flashed through Jack's mind. A sterile laboratory, arguments in a language he didn't understand but somehow comprehended, alarms blaring, and finally a desperate flight in the small pod. My people do not reproduce naturally anymore, Lyra's voice explained as the images faded. All seraphim are created in laboratories, their minds shaped from conception to fit their predetermined roles. But I conceived naturally. An impossibility, they said, a threat to our order. Jack looked at the monitor showing the twin fetuses. And they wanted to terminate your pregnancy? Worse, they wanted to study us, dissect us. I could not allow it. Her mental voice grew fainter. I must rest now. But know this, Jack Miller. If anything happens to me, my children will need you. They have already formed a bond with you. A bond? What do you mean? Jack asked, but Lyra had slipped back into unconsciousness. Jack checked the monitors again, frowning at some unusual energy readings emanating from Lyra's womb. Whatever was happening with those twins, it wasn't like any pregnancy he'd ever encountered. In his medical career, he made a decision then. The nearest human outpost, Frontier Station Epsilon, was 3 days away at maximum speed. They would have better medical facilities and possibly information about seraphim physiology. Computer, set course for Epsilon Station, maximum speed. Jack ordered as he secured Lyra for travel. As the engines roared to life and the drifter's hope changed course. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could almost hear the faint sound of 2 tiny heartbeats, beating in perfect synchrony with his own. 3 weeks had passed since Jack Miller arrived at Frontier Station Epsilon. The busy space station served as a hub for traders, miners, and travelers from across the sector. It was also the perfect place to hide in plain sight. Jack's ship, the Drifter's Hope, remained docked in a quiet corner of the station's vast hangar. He had paid extra for privacy and for the dock workers to ignore the unusual energy readings coming from his vessel. Most assumed he was transporting exotic but legal cargo. None suspected he was harboring a pregnant seraphim. Jack punched in the access code and entered his ship, carrying a bag of medical supplies. The air inside was warmer than station standard, adjusted to better suit Lyra's physiology. How is she? Jack asked as he stepped into the converted cargo bay. Susan Wright looked up from her medical scanner. She was Jack's age, with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. They had served together as military medics years ago, and she was the only person Jack trusted with this secret. Stable, but the contractions are getting stronger and more frequent, Susan said. Whatever natural gestation period these seraphim have, I think we're approaching the end. Jack moved closer to examine Lyra. She lay on a makeshift bed, her silvery skin now stretched tight over her swollen abdomen. Her violet eyes were closed, but he could feel her presence in his mind. soft, warm glow that had become familiar over the past weeks. "And the twins?" he asked. Susan shook her head in amazement. "Like nothing I've ever seen. Their neural development is off the charts. Look at this." She handed him the scanner. Jack whistled softly as he read the display. "That can't be right." "According to this, their brains are already as developed as a human 5-year-old. And growing more complex by the day," Susan confirmed. "I've been monitoring the telepathic field Lyra mentioned. It's strongest between the three of them, but ... But what?" Susan looked at him oddly. "It's extending to you too, Jack. I can measure it now with the equipment you got me. There's a definite link forming between you and those babies." Before Jack could respond, the ship's proximity alarm beeped softly. He moved quickly to the cockpit and checked the security feed. A station security officer stood outside his ship. "Trouble," Jack muttered, returning to the cargo bay. "Susan, stay with Lyra. I'll handle this." Jack exited the ship, closing the door firmly behind him. The security officer was a tall, lean man with a perpetual frown. His name tag read Peters. "Officer Peters," Jack greeted him with forced casualness. "What can I do for you?" "Routine inspection, Miller," Peters said, though his eyes suggested otherwise. "We've had some unusual reports lately. Unauthorized visitors to the station." "Everything's in order with my papers," Jack said. "I'm just doing some engine work." Before heading out again, Peters nodded slowly. "That's so? Then you wouldn't mind if I take a look inside?" "Actually, I would mind. My cargo is private and fully authorized." Jack produced his salvage license. "Unless you have a specific warrant, I'm within my rights to refuse." Peters studied Jack for a long moment. "There have been inquiries," he finally said, voice lower, "about a Seraphim fugitive. Very high-level inquiries from both human officials and Seraphim representatives." Jack kept his face neutral, but his heart raced. "And what would that have to do with me?" "Probably nothing," Peters said. "But the timing of your arrival, the unusual power readings from your ship ... it raises questions." "I deal in salvage, not fugitives," Jack said firmly. Peters leaned closer. "Listen, Miller. I don't know what you're involved in, but these Seraphim visitors aren't the type to ask nicely. They've been scanning the station with tech that makes our systems look primitive. Whatever you're hiding, they'll find it soon." Jack realized with surprise that Peters was trying to warn him. "Why tell me this?" "I served with Susan right in the border conflicts," Peters said simply. "She's been making discreet supply runs to your ship. Susan's good people. If she's helping you, there must be a reason." Jack nodded slowly. "How much time do I have?" "Not much." "They're starting section-by-section scans tomorrow?" "Your dock is in Section 4. That gives you about 18 hours. Peters straightened up. "Now, I'll note in my report that your documents were in order and no inspection was necessary at this time." "Thank you," Jack said. "Don't thank me. Just be gone by tomorrow." Peters walked away, his posture once again rigid. An official. Jack rushed back inside the ship. "We need to leave," he told Susan urgently. "Now, the Seraphim are here, searching for Lyra." Susan's eyes widened. "She can't be moved, Jack. She's too close to delivery." At that moment, Lyra's eyes fluttered open. Her voice filled Jack's mind. Weaker than before, but determined. "They found me." I felt their minds touching the edge of the station. Jack knelt beside her. "Who are they, Lyra? What do they want with you and the babies?" Instead of words, images flooded Jack's mind, massive. Ships with sleek, pearlescent hulls. Tall, elegant seraphim in elaborate robes. Laboratories where infant seraphim floated in glowing tanks, their tiny minds already being shaped by pulsing energies. "My people have not reproduced naturally for 7 generations, Lyra's voice explained in his mind. "All seraphim are designed. Their genetic code carefully selected, their mental pathways predetermined before birth." More images came. Lyra working in a laboratory, making a discovery, being confronted by stern-faced elders. I found that our artificial methods were diminishing. US, limiting what we could become. When I discovered I was pregnant, a biological impossibility according to our science, I knew my children would be different. Natural, free from the mental conditioning all seraphim undergo. The council saw them as a threat to their control. Jack. Understood now, and that's why you ran. Yes, she confirmed. My children will be the first naturally born seraphim in centuries. They will think for themselves, choose their own paths. The council fears this more than anything. Susan interrupted, checking her scanner. Jack, her contractions are less than 2 minutes apart now. We can't leave. Jack made a quick decision. Prep for emergency departure? I'll get us clearance. Somehow, as he turned to leave, Lyra gripped his wrist with surprising strength. Their eyes met, and Jack felt the telepathic connection between them deepen. Suddenly, he could see through her eyes, feel her pain and fear, but also her fierce determination. There is something else you must know, she told him mentally. I have been establishing a bond between you and my children since you found me. Without a guide, a Taimar, they will not survive infancy. Their minds are too powerful, too unformed. What? Jack asked, confused. Taimar, in your language it means master, protector, parent, all of these things and more. You must be this for them, Jack Miller. There is no one else. Before Jack could protest, alarms blared throughout the station. A station-wide announcement followed. Attention all personnel. Unidentified vessels have entered station space without authorization. All civilians are ordered to remain in their quarters. This is not a drill, Susan looked at the external monitors. Jack, those ships? They're seraphim, Jack's mind raced. They were out of time. Lyra's grip on his wrist tightened as another contraction hit her. The babies were coming, the seraphim hunters were closing in, and they were trapped through their mental link. Jack felt Lyra's grim determination. We must hide, her voice whispered in his mind. I know where, the gas giant in this system. Its atmosphere will mask our presence. Jack nodded, already moving to the pilot's seat. Susan, strap in and keep Lyra stable. This is going to be a rough ride. As the Drifter's Hope disengaged from the dock without proper clearance, Jack could feel something new in his mind, not just Lyra's presence now, but two tiny, bright sparks of consciousness, reaching out to him with innocent curiosity as their mother channeled her remaining strength to help them escape. The Drifter's Hope shuddered as it descended into the swirling atmosphere of the gas giant. Outside the viewports, massive storms in shades of amber and gold raged across the planet's surface. Jack guided the ship deeper into a relatively calm pocket between storm systems. This should mask our energy signature, Jack said, engaging the ship's stabilizers. But we can't stay here long. The pressure will crush the hull if we go too deep. Susan barely acknowledged him. She was fully focused on Lyra, whose condition had worsened during their escape from the station. The Seraphim woman's silvery skin had taken on a dull, ashen quality, and her breathing was shallow and rapid. Jack, we need to deliver these babies now, Susan called urgently. She's fading fast. Jack set the ship on autopilot and hurried back to the makeshift medical bay. One look at Lyra told him Susan was right. The alien woman's violet eyes found his, and he felt her presence in his mind, weaker now, but still determined. I am ready, Lyra's voice whispered in his thoughts. Help my children into this world, Jack Miller. For the next hour, Jack and Susan worked together as they had done years ago on distant battlefields. Susan's medical knowledge combined with Jack's field experience made them an efficient team. The difference was that this time, they were delivering alien twins with only basic medical equipment and the telepathic guidance of their dying mother. I can see the first one, Susan announced. The membrane is different from human births, it's almost translucent. Jack positioned himself to receive the first child. As the membrane surrounding the baby thinned and broke, a soft glow filled the room. The infant that slid into Jack's waiting hands was unlike anything he had ever seen. The boy, somehow Jack knew it was male, had skin that shimmered with an opalescent light. His eyes, when they opened, were a brilliant violet like his mother's, but with flecks of blue that reminded Jack of Earth's sky. Instead of crying, the newborn simply stared up at Jack with an unnerving awareness. Jack felt a gentle touch against his mind, curious and innocent. Ilan, Lyra's voice named the child in Jack's thoughts. His name is Ilan. Before Jack could respond, Lyra gasped in pain as the second birth began. Minutes later, Susan was placing a baby girl in Jack's other arm. She was identical to her brother in appearance, with the same opalescent skin and violet blue eyes. The only difference was a small birthmark on her left temple, shaped like a crescent moon. Nira, came Lyra's mental voice. Her name is Nira. The twins lay quietly in Jack's arms, their eyes moving between his face and their mother's. Jack could feel their minds touching his, not with words but with emotions and impressions, curiosity, comfort, recognition. They know you already? Susan said softly, noticing the way the babies focused on Jack. It's as if they've been waiting to meet. You, Jack moved closer to Lyra so she could see her children. Her breathing was becoming more labored, and the monitor showed her life signs weakening rapidly. Jack, Susan said quietly, I've done everything I can, but she's lost too much blood. Her organs are shutting down. Lyra's hand reached out weakly, touching first one twin, then the other. Jack felt a surge of energy through the mental connection he shared with her. She was using the last of her strength for something important. I am binding them to you, Lyra explained in his mind. Her mental voice was clearer now, as if she was channeling all her remaining energy into this final communication. Without this bond, my children would not survive infancy. Their minds are too powerful, too unformed. They need a Taimar to guide them until they can control their abilities. Images flooded Jack's consciousness, seraphim children born without the artificial controls of their society, their minds expanding too quickly, burning out like stars that shine too brightly. Why me? Jack asked mentally. I know nothing about raising seraphim children. Lyra's answer came with feelings of certainty and trust. Because you are kind. Because you helped without question. Because you have known both war and peace, and choose peace. Because your mind is strong enough to withstand their power, yet gentle enough to guide without controlling. Jack felt a strange sensation, like warm energy flowing from Lyra through him and into the twins. The baby's eyes glowed briefly, and Jack gasped as he felt the connection between them strengthen and deepen. It is done, Lyra's voice whispered. They are yours now, Taimar. Susan checked the monitors and shook her head sadly. Jack, she's going. Lyra's eyes found Jack's one last time. My children are free of the controls our society places on all seraphim. They will grow into their full potential. This is why the council fears them. This is why you must protect them. Jack nodded, tears forming in his eyes for this brave woman. He had known for such a short time, yet felt connected to so deeply. I promise. In my escape pod, Lyra continued, her mental voice fading, there is data, my research. It will help you understand. Her breathing became more irregular. The twins, sensing their mother's fading life force, made soft sounds for the first time, not cries, but gentle coos that seemed to harmonize with each other. Teach them love, Jack Miller. Something our society forgot long ago. With those final words, Lyra's eyes closed. The monitors flatlined, and the gentle presence that had occupied a corner of Jack's mind for weeks vanished. Leaving an empty space that ached with her absence, Susan reached over and gently closed Lyra's eyes. I'm sorry, Jack. Jack stood there, holding the twins, feeling the weight of his promise. The babies looked up at him with their knowing eyes, and he felt their minds reach for his, seeking comfort, seeking connection. What now? Susan asked softly. Before Jack could answer, a proximity alarm blared. Susan rushed to the cockpit and checked the sensors. Multiple ships entering the upper atmosphere, she reported. They're searching for us. Jack looked down at the twins in his arms. They were watching him with complete trust, as if they had known him their entire short lives, which in a way they had through their mother's mental link. Now we run, Jack said. And we keep these children safe. Susan returned to the medical bay and began gathering supplies. The babies seem remarkably developed for newborns, she observed. They're not crying, their eyes are focused, and they're clearly aware of their surroundings. As if to confirm her assessment, Island reached out a tiny hand and touched Jack's, face, Jack gasped as a clear thought, not in words but in pure emotion and intent, formed in his mind: recognition. The baby knew him as Tamar. As master, protector, parent. Nir made a soft sound, and Jack felt her presence in his mind as well, different from her brother's, more observant, more patient. "They're incredible," Jack whispered, "and dangerous to those who fear what they don't." "Understand," Susan said grimly, nodding toward the view screen where distant lights indicated the searching ships. "We need to go, now." As Jack carefully placed the twins in a makeshift carrier, he accessed Lyra's research data from her escape pod. What he found confirmed his worst fears and greatest hopes. These naturally born seraphim twins possessed potential far beyond their artificially gestated counterparts. Without the mental controls implanted during artificial gestation, their telepathic and telekinetic abilities would develop without limitation. "They're afraid of what these children might become," Jack said. "And what might that be?" Susan asked. Jack looked at the peaceful twins. "Free?" 2 years passed on the remote, agricultural colony of New Haven. The small farming community sat nestled between rolling hills and vast fields of grain. Most colonists minded their own business, which made it the perfect hiding place for Jack. Susan and the twins. Jack stood on the porch of their modest home, watching Island Nira play in the yard. Despite being only 2 years old, they looked like human 5- or 6-year-olds. Their opalescent skin had darkened slightly to better blend in with humans, though it still shimmered in direct sunlight. They wore simple clothes and wide-brimmed hats that shadowed their unusual violet eyes. "Tamar, look!" Ilan called out, his small voice clear and precise for a child his age. Jack smiled at the name. He had tried to get the twins to call him Dad, but they insisted on Tamar. It was more than just a word to them. It was the essence of their bond. Ilan was pointing at a small rock floating a few inches above his outstretched palm. His face showed intense concentration as the stone began to spin slowly. "Very good," Jack said, glancing around to make sure no neighbors were watching. "Remember what we talked about, though?" Ilan nodded seriously and let the rock drop back into his hand. "No powers when others can see," Jack ruffled the boy's silvery hair. Ilan had shown remarkable telekinetic abilities in recent months. He could now move small objects with his mind. Though the effort still tired him quickly, Nira sat nearby, seemingly talking to herself. Jack knew better. She was communicating with the small creatures that lived in the garden. Her abilities had developed differently from her brother's. While Ilan could move objects, Nira could sense thoughts and feelings not just from people, but from animals as well. "Jack," Susan's voice called from inside the house. "I need your help with something." Jack went inside to find Susan hunched over her computer terminal. In their new life, Susan served as the colony's doctor, while Jack worked as a medic and general handyman. The colonists accepted the story that Jack was a widower raising his sister's orphan twins with Susan's help. "What is it?" Jack asked. Susan pointed to data scrolling across her screen. "I've been analyzing the samples from the twins' last checkup. Their neural development is unlike anything I've ever seen." She looked up at him. "Their brains are creating new pathways, new connections at a rate that should be impossible." Jack leaned closer to study the scans. "Is it dangerous?" "Not dangerous. Just extraordinary." Susan shook her head in wonder. "If they keep developing at this rate, their mental abilities will surpass anything recorded in any known species." A cry from outside interrupted them. Jack rushed back to the porch to see Nira standing frozen, her eyes wide and unfocused. "Nira?" Jack hurried to her side. "What's wrong?" "People are sick," she whispered. "Many people. I can feel their pain." Jack exchanged a worried look with Susan, who had followed him outside. "What people, sweetie?" "In the village," Nira said, pointing toward the colony's main settlement 2 miles away. They heard inside. "They burn." As if to confirm her words, the colony's emergency alarm began to wail in the distance. Within minutes, Jack's communicator beeped with an urgent message. "All medical personnel report to the central clinic immediately. Unknown illness spreading through eastern sector." Susan was already gathering her medical bag. "I have to go." "We'll all go," Jack decided, picking up Nira. Elin, come on. At the clinic, they found chaos. Dozens of colonists lay on makeshift beds, their faces flushed with fever, bodies racked with spasms. The colony's small medical staff worked frantically to stabilize the worst cases. Some kind of virus? The head doctor told Susan when they arrived. It started this morning in the grain processing facility. Spreads fast. High fever, muscle spasms, then respiratory distress? Jack helped Susan examine patients while keeping the twins close. He noticed Nero watching the sick people with intense concentration, while Island kept looking at his sister with concern. "Tamar," Nero whispered, tugging on Jack's sleeve. "I can see it." "See what?" Jack asked, kneeling beside her. "The sickness. In their blood, it's tiny but angry." She closed her eyes. "Elin can see it too, through me." Jack had learned not to dismiss the twins' perceptions. "Can you show me?" Nero placed her small hand on Jack's forehead. Immediately, Jack's mind filled with an image microscopic organisms with distinctive spiky shells moving through human blood cells. Jack gasped and pulled away. "Susan," he called urgently, "I need to show you something." In a quiet corner, Jack explained what Nero had shown him. Susan looked skeptical until Jack described the organism in precise detail. "That sounds like a variant of Rigelian fever," she said, surprised, "but that doesn't make sense. Rigelian fever only affects livestock, not humans." "Could it have mutated?" Jack asked. "Possibly, but—" Susan trailed off, thinking, "If it is a mutated Rigelian pathogen, we need to see it to confirm." "The microscopes here aren't powerful enough," Jack said. Island, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Nira and I can help find the bad things." "We can show everyone." Jack hesitated. Using their abilities publicly risked exposure, but people were dying. "Okay," he decided. "But we need to be careful about how we do this." Over the next hours, Jack and Susan worked with the twins in a remarkable collaboration. Nira, with her ability to sense the pathogen, guided Susan to take blood samples from specific patients. Island, connected mentally to his sister, helped Jack describe the organism's structure and behavior in detail. Using this information, Susan identified the pathogen, a mutated form of Rigelian fever that had jumped from the colony's cattle to humans. More importantly, she knew how to treat it. "We need to synthesize this compound," Susan told the head doctor, showing him her calculations. "It should neutralize the pathogen." The treatment worked. Within hours, patients began to stabilize. By nightfall, no new cases had appeared, and the colony breathed a collective sigh of relief. Word spread quickly about the mysterious medic and doctor who had saved the colony. Most credited Susan's medical knowledge, but rumors began about the strange, quiet children who had somehow helped identify the disease. A week later, as the last patients were released from the clinic, the colony leader visited their home. "The council wants to formally recognize your service," he told Jack and Susan. "We're holding a ceremony tomorrow." After he left, Jack paced the floor anxiously. "This is exactly what we've been avoiding. Attention. We saved over 200 lives." Susan reminded him. "We couldn't just let them die." "I know." Jack sighed, watching the twins, who were playing quietly in the corner. "But news of this will spread beyond New Haven, and there are still people looking for them." That night, as Jack tucked the twins into bed, Nira touched his face gently. "Don't worry, Tamar. We're safe for now." "How do you know that?" Jack asked. "I can feel it," she said simply. "And when danger comes, we'll know." Ilan nodded in agreement. "We're stronger now. We can help protect you too." Jack smiled at the thought of being protected by these children, yet he had seen their abilities grow daily. Perhaps they really could help defend themselves now. As he turned to leave, Ilan called out, "Tamar?" "Yes? Why do some people fear us? We only want to help." Jack paused, considering how to answer. "People often fear what they don't understand. And what you and Nira can do is very special." "Like the people who took our mother away?" Nira asked softly. Jack nodded. "Yes, but not everyone is like that. Many people, once they know you, will see how wonderful you are." As Jack left their room, his communicator beeped with an encrypted message. the kind only used by his old military contacts. His heart sank as he read it. Bounty posted for information on unusual twins with telepathic abilities. Seekers arrived on Epsilon Station asking questions. Watch your back. Peters, Jack looked back at the twins' room. They had found a temporary home here, but peace never lasted long. Soon they would need to run again. The ancient space station hung in the darkness at the edge of explored space. Its curved metal arms extended like frozen tentacles, parts of it dark and abandoned, other sections glowing with faint light. Jack guided the drifter's hope toward a docking bay that looked barely functional. 3 months had passed since they fled New Haven. The warning from Peters had come just in time. The day after the celebration ceremony, 3 unmarked ships had entered orbit around the colony. Jack, Susan, and the twins had escaped in the night, leaving behind the peaceful life they had built. "Are you sure about this?" Susan asked, looking at the decrepit station through the view screen. Jack nodded grimly. "This is the rendezvous point. If Karan is true to his word, he'll meet us here." In the back of the ship, Isla and Nira sat quietly, holding hands. At 2.5 years old, they now looked like human 7-year-olds. Their growth had continued to accelerate, both physically and mentally. Elin could now move objects as large as chairs with his mind, while Nira's telepathic range had extended to nearly a mile. "They're here," Nira said suddenly, her violet eyes focusing on something beyond the view screen. Many minds, cautious, hopeful. Jack had learned to trust the twins' perceptions. "How many?" "A ship," Islan answered for his sister. 23 people. They're hiding on the far side of the station." As if confirming his words, the communication system chimed with an incoming message. A voice spoke in a language Jack didn't recognize, followed by careful English. "Drifter's Hope, this is Karan of the Seraphim Liberation. We welcome you and the children of Lyra." Jack looked at the twins, who nodded in unison. "He speaks truth," Nira said. After docking, Jack instructed Susan to stay with the ship, ready for immediate departure if necessary. He and the twins disembarked, moving cautiously through the abandoned corridors of the station. The air was stale but breathable, the gravity weak and uneven. They entered a large chamber that might once have been a trading floor. Standing in the center was a tall figure in simple gray clothing. Like Lyra, he had silvery skin and pointed ears, but his eyes were a deep blue rather than violet. Behind him stood 4 other seraphim, their posture alert and protective. "Jack Miller," the leader said, inclining his head slightly. "I am Karan. Lyra was my cousin." Jack kept the twins slightly behind him. "How did you find us?" "We have been watching for signs of Lyra's children since her escape," Karan explained. "The incident at New Haven 2 unusual children helping to cure a plague reached our network. We have been searching for you since then." "Why?" Jack asked directly. Karan gestured to a collection of worn furniture nearby. "Please sit. There is much to explain." Once they were seated, Karan studied the twins with open wonder. "May I?" he asked, extending his hands toward them. Jack hesitated, then nodded. The twins stepped forward, unafraid. Karan placed his palms near their foreheads, careful not to touch them. After a moment, he inhaled sharply and lowered his hands. "Extraordinary," he breathed. "They are completely unbound, yet stable. How is this possible?" "Tamar keeps us safe," Ilan said simply. Karan looked at Jack with new respect. "You are their Tamar? This is unexpected." "Lyra created a bond between us before she died," Jack explained. "She said they needed guidance." "Yes, but ... Karan seemed at a loss for words. "The Tamar bond is sacred among our people. It has not been formed naturally for 7 generations. All Seraphim children are now guided by artificial imprints, not living tamers." Jack leaned forward. "Tell me why Lyra was running. Why your people wanted to harm her and the twins." Karan's expression darkened. "Not my people, the council that rules them." He stood and began to pace. "The Seraphim were once a naturally reproducing species with the freedom to develop our abilities without constraint. Our powers, telepathy, telekinesis, even limited precognition varied naturally among our population. What changed? Jack asked. Power, Karan said bitterly. The ruling council discovered that by controlling reproduction, by growing children, in laboratories and imprinting their neural pathways from conception, they could create a perfectly ordered society. Everyone in their proper place, with precisely the abilities needed for their assigned function, no more, no less. The twins listened intently, their eyes never leaving Karan's face. Lyra discovered that this artificial process was actually diminishing our species, Karan continued. Each generation became more limited, more specialized. She predicted our eventual extinction if the practice continued. When she became pregnant naturally, something that should have been impossible, the council saw it as a threat to their control. And now you want the twins to help your rebellion, Jack concluded. Karan nodded. They represent hope for our people, proof that we can return to our natural state. They're children, not symbols, Jack said firmly, before Karan could respond. Neera gasped and grabbed her brother's hand. Tamar, she said urgently. Susan is in danger. Jack was on his feet instantly. What's happening? A ship, I said. His eyes unfocused as he shared his sister's vision. Coming out of hyperspace, they have Susan. Jack's communicator confirmed their warning. Susan's voice came through, tight with fear. Jack, a Seraphim dreadnought just appeared. They've locked onto the ship with a tractor beam. I can't break free. Karan looked alarmed. The Council's enforcers, they must have followed us. Or you led them to us, Jack said accusingly, pulling the twins close. No, Neera said before Karan could defend himself. He didn't know, but someone on his ship did. Jack had no time to consider this. How do we save Susan? The twins looked at each other, communicating silently as they often did. Then they turned to Jack. We can find her, they said in unison. We can help you save her. What followed was unlike anything Jack had experienced. The twins linked minds with him, Karan and the other rebels, creating a shared consciousness that allowed them to coordinate perfectly. Through Neera's abilities, they located Susan on the dreadnought. Through Elan's telekinesis, amplified somehow by the mental link, they disabled security systems as they infiltrated the massive ship. The rescue mission succeeded, but not without cost. In the final confrontation with the Seraphim enforcers, Jack took a blast meant for the twins. As he lay dying on the floor of the dreadnought's detention level, Susan worked frantically to save him, knowing her efforts were futile. The damage is too extensive, she said through tears. I can't stop the bleeding. The twins knelt beside Jack, their small hands on his chest. We can help, Island said. Together, Neera added. Before Susan could stop them, the twins entered a deep trance. Their opalescent skin began to glow with an inner light that spread to encompass Jack. Susan watched in amazement as the fatal wound began to close. Damaged tissues regenerating before her eyes. Jack gasped as his consciousness returned. The twins had collapsed beside him, exhausted but alive. As he sat up, he felt something new in his mind. The bond with the twins had changed, deepened. It was no longer a one-way connection of guardian and wards, but a true partnership. 3 weeks later, aboard Karan's ship headed toward Earth, Jack stood watching the twins as they spoke with a human diplomat. The diplomat had been skeptical about allowing Seraphim refugees to settle on Earth until he met the twins. They are remarkable, Susan said, joining Jack by the viewport. What they did to save you, that kind of healing, is beyond even Seraphim legends. Jack nodded. They're changing every day, growing into something new. Does it worry you? Susan asked. Their power? Jack watched as Neera laughed at something the diplomat said, a normal child's laugh, despite her extraordinary abilities. No, he said finally. Because they choose to use it with compassion. The diplomat approached them, looking thoughtful. Mr. Miller, your children explained something interesting to me. They said they follow you not because they must, but because they choose to. They called you their Taimar. It means master, Jack explained, but also protector and parent. It's complicated. They explained it differently, the diplomat said. They said it means the one who shows the way, but lets us choose our path. That's not mastery as we understand it. Jack looked over at the twins, who smiled back at him. In his mind, he felt their love and trust, not the blind obedience of servants to a master, but the willing respect of children for a parent who guided with love. No, Jack agreed. It's something better. As their ship continued toward Earth, Jack reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. He had saved a pregnant alien only to have her children save him in return. They called him Master. But in truth, they had taught him more than he could ever teach them about courage, about family, and about the power of choosing connection over control.